Goblin launch detected.
Hey gang, and welcome back. Just so you know, you can use the promo code MTGMudsta, all caps, one word, at flipsidegaming.com to get 10% off orders $10 or more. You can also use the promo code at Original Magic Art on everything except for paintings. And finally, you can use the code at mtg.multizone.ca to get 10% off of your orders of singles. Using the code will help you save some money and help out the channel at the same time. Just thought you might want to know, Flipside Gaming is doing another giveaway, this time for a box of Modern Horizons. From May 13th until June 16th, if you place an order of $10 or more, you'll be entered to win. You can now also enter for free by mailing Flipside Gaming a self-addressed envelope or postcard with your information on it. I've also included a link below with more information. It's one entry per person, so good luck and have fun. Alrighty, let's get right into it. This week's game is filmed at Multizone in Gatineau, and Max is playing Yikes, it's Yennett, keeping a plains, Bajuka Bog, an island, Polluted Delta, Treachery, Liliana Vess, and a Luminarch Primordial. Jameson is playing the Reverberating Riku, keeping Expropriate, Long-Term Plans, Howl of the Horde, Exotic Orchard, Forest, and a Mountain. Nick is rocking his law-abiding Azor, keeping an island, Blind Obedience, Overrule, Gideon's Lawkeeper, Plains, Dovin Architect of Law, and Tranquil Cove. And last but not least, we got Martin rocking his Sacrificing Sek'Kuar deck, keeping a Swamp, Demon of the Dark Schemes, Mosswort Bridge, Skullclamp, Sek'Kuar Tribe Elder, and a Shadowborn Apostle. Max wins the die roll and starts us off. Max plays a tapped Bajuka Bog and targets Martin. Martin plays a Mosswort Bridge and hides away a card before passing to Jameson. Jameson plays his Exotic Orchard and passes. Nick plays a Plains and casts Authority of the Consuls. Max plays an Island and passes. Martin plays a Swamp and we see a Sek'Kuar Tribe Elder hit the field, gaining Nick 1 life. Jameson plays a Yavimaya Coast and passes. Nick plays a Tranquil Cove and gains 1 life as it comes in tapped. He pays 1 to cast a Gideon's Lawkeeper before passing to Max. Max plays a Plains and casts Whisper Silk Cloak. In the meantime, Martin sacrifices his Elder to go and find a mountain. Martin casts a Shadowborn Apostle in his main phase, and then a Skullclamp, paying the 1 once it's on the field to clamp the Apostle. It dies and draws him 2 cards. Martin then plays a Swamp, tapping it to cast another Apostle, and passing. Jameson plays a Mountain and casts Kadama's Reach, passing while he searches. Nick plays an Island and puts on his Fun Police hat by bringing out more bad vibes with Blind Obedience. Max plays a Polluted Delta and passes. Martin plays a Llanowar Wastes and casts his own copy of Kadama's Reach. And in the meantime, Max cracks his Polluted Delta, going to find a Hollowed Fountain. Martin then clamps his Apostle, drawing 2, and passes. Jameson just plays a Forest before passing. Nick draws for turn and plays Ghost Quarter. He then also passes. Max drops a basic Swamp and brings out Yennett, giving Nick 1 life as it comes in super tapped. Martin plays a Forest for turn and casts his Commander, who also comes in super tapped and gives Nick a life. He then passes, and Jameson casts Long-Term Plans to tutor for a card and put it 3rd from the top. Doing his best to be the control player at the table, Jameson plays a Command Tower for turn and does nothing but pass. Nick is stalled on 4 lands unfortunately, and has no choice but to pass. Max plays another Swamp for turn and gears up Yennett with the Cloak. With the Quip on the stack, Nick uses his Lawmaker to tap the Sphinx, and with his combat step now pointless, Max passes. Martin plays a Taiga for his land for turn, and casts a Zathrid Necromancer, who comes in tapped and gives Nick a life. We then see an Old Ark Grave Pack come out for Martin, which Max counters with Disallow. Martin moves to pass, but not before putting the clamp onto the Necromancer. Jameson plays an Island for turn, and passes. Nick plays an Azorius Signet for turn, and also passes. Max plays a Windswept Heath as his land for turn, and moves to combat with Yennett. He swings the Sphinx at Martin, and Yennett's trigger has Max revealing Rhystic Study, which he gets to cast without paying the mana cost, and Martin then takes 3 commander damage. In his second main phase, Max casts Liliana Vess, down taking the Walker once she's on the field, and goes to find a card from his library and put it on top. At the end of turn, Jameson uses Brain Freeze to mill Max's top 3 cards and the card he tutored for. Martin plays a Bloodstained Mire, cracking it and losing 1 to go and find a Badlands. At the same time, Max uses the chance to crack his Windswept Heath and goes to find a land. Martin then casts Bloodbond March, which seems like an incredible inclusion for any Shadowborn Apostle deck. We then see another Apostle from Martin, which in turn brings back the 2 from his graveyard. And with all the mentoring, Nick gains 3 life. Martin then casts Zulaport Cutthroat, and moves the Clamp from the Necromancer to an Apostle, draining his opponents for 1, and gaining a Graveborn and a zombie token as it dies, which has Nick gain 2. Martin then clamps another Apostle, and drains the table again, gains 2 more tokens, with Nick gaining 2 more life as they enter. With nothing else, Martin passes. Jameson starts his turn off with a Manamorphose, floating a red and a blue, and drawing a card. He then taps his command tower for a green, and recasts Regrowth to return Kadama's Reach to his hand, which he then casts again to find a mountain for the field and a forest to his hand. He then plays the forest for turn and passes to Nick. Nick draws, and I question if his deck has more than 4 lands, and he passes turn. Max draws for turn and down takes Liliana again to tutor for a card. He finds what he's looking for and puts it on top. Moving to combat, he swings his commander at Martin once more, and this time reveals an Ulamog. He gets to cast it for free, and uses the on-cast trigger to blow up the Bloodbond March. Max's second main phase has Illuminate Primordial hitting the field, with Nick gaining 1 life from it, and then realizing to gain a life from the Ulamog. The Primordial then exiles the Lockkeeper and the Cutthroat, giving Nick and Martin a life each. Max then cracks his Evolving Wilds to find a basic island and pass. Martin completes the equivalent of Exodia by playing his 3rd and final duel for the deck. He clamps one of the Graveborns to draw 2 cards, and then the second one drawing 2 more. Martin then taps 5 lands for 5 more Shadowborn Apostles, and doesn't pay for any of the Rhystic Study triggers. Nick also gains 5 life, and with nothing else, Martin passes. Jameson draws, and Martin remembers to tap his Apostles. We then see Jameson tap all of his mana, and he puts Expropriate onto the stack. This invokes an immediate response from Nick, who uses Overrule where X is 3 to counter the spell and gain 3 life. Neither of the guys across from him pay for the study, so Max draws 2. Nick pays 5 in his main phase, 4 for the Day of Judgment and 1 for the study trigger. With the wipe on the stack, Martin sacrifices 6 Shadowborn Apostles to go and tutor for a demon, and also gains 6 zombie tokens from the Necromancer and 6 Graveborn from Sek'Kuar, which in turn gives Nick 12 life as they enter. Martin grabs and puts to field an Extractor Demon, and Nick gains 1. The board wipe then resolves, and Martin uses all of his Extractor triggers to mill Max for a good 1/3 of his library. Martin also gains a few more zombies and a Graveborn as the Necromancer and Sek'Kuar die. Nick then passes turn. Max draws and taps all but the plains to cast Diluvian Primordial. He gets to pick a spell from each of his opponents, and with Jameson's the target is pretty obvious. He casts Martin's Kadama's Reach as well, and chooses to cast nothing from Nick. Max goes to grab some basics quickly, and then the table goes to vote. Max votes for time, while everyone else votes for money. He decides to grab Jameson's Command Tower, Martin's Clamp, and Nick's Authority of the Consuls. We then see a Sensei's Divining Top hit the field, and Max heads to combat. He swings the Ulamog at Martin, who sacrifices his 4 permanents to the Annihilator trigger, and then just takes the hit. In his second main phase, Max upticks Liliana, and Jameson discards a card. Passing to his extra turn, Max has to discard down to 7 first. Max draws for turn and heads to combat. He swings Ulamog at Jameson and the Primordial at Nick. Jameson sacrifices 4 lands, and then Nick and he take the hit. Max then casts an Enigma Sphinx and cascades into a copy of Extract from Darkness. He mills everyone for 2, and then brings out a Perplexing Chimera from his graveyard. Both of the creatures come in tapped from the Blind Obedience, and Max passes. Martin draws and plays a Swamp, asking Max to get a closer look at the Chimera. He then casts a Phyrexian Altar, and then a Zendikar Resurgent, which has Max drawing some cards. Jameson untaps, plays an island, and passes. Nick draws for turn and drops a Liev Skyknight, detaining Max's Ulamog and buying the table a turn. It comes in tapped though, and gives Max a life. Nick then casts a Captain's Claw before passing. Max plays his own command tower for turn and swings what he can at Martin for 13. Max then upticks Liliana to make Jameson discard again. We then see an Ashiok hit the field, the old one, not the new one, and Max upticks him, exiling some of Nick's top cards. Martin casts Razaketh in his main phase, which is a very powerful card, and draws one from the Resurgent trigger. That's all he'll get to do from the demon though, as Max counters it with a counterspell. Martin then casts 2 more Shadowborn Apostles, drawing from each, followed by a third, and drawing from that one. We then see a Nantuko Shrine, and Max realizes he should gain more life. Sadly, Martin has no more Apostles, but does hope to draw into one when he casts an Elves of Deep Shadow. He doesn't, and he then sacrifices the Apostles to the altar for 3 red, and the Elves for 1 black, using the floating mana from his Pain Land he used to cast the shrine. He casts Garna, but Max decides to swap it for the Perplexing Chimera. His plan foiled, Martin then cycles Sheltered Thicket, drawing a card, and then plays a Temple of Malice as his land for turn, scrying 1 and keeping it on top. Jameson draws for turn, and casts Felwar Stone before passing. Nick draws and casts Lavinia to detain all non-land permanents with CMC 4 or less. She enters tapped and gives Max a life. Max draws and goes to combat. He swings Ulamog at Nick, and swings enough at Martin to take him out if it connects. Nick sacrifices everything but his lands and his rocks and takes the hit, while Martin dies. In his second main phase, Max has Jameson discard a card with Liliana and passes. Jameson casts an Oracle of Moldiah in his main phase, revealing a forest off the top and playing it. He then reveals another mountain and plays that. And then finally reveals a Mana Vault and passes. Nick draws and passes. Max goes to combat again and runs the Sphinx and Primordial at Jameson and the Ulamog at Nick. With the Annihilator trigger on the stack, Nick floats all of his mana and he casts Hixus Prison Warden. We realize Hixus requires the damage to have been dealt to Nick already, but it doesn't matter anyway since Max has Desertion in hand, ready to steal the creature away. Nick decides to scoop it up at this point with only 1 land, and Max then passes to Jameson. Jameson casts Mana Vault in his main phase, and taps a lot of mana to cast Aminatu's Augury. It also won't do him much good because it heads to the graveyard, since Max is able to cast Mystic Confluence, and forces Jameson to pay more for the spell than he has, and lets Max draw 1. Jameson knows when he's beat, and he concedes to Max. Game review time. So, they always tell you that you're supposed to counter and expropriate, but in hindsight, this might have actually been one of the few times where letting Jameson resolve it might have been better than letting Max resolve it. I can't really fault Nick for doing it though, because he had no idea that Diluvian Primordial was just around the corner. It was a bit ambitious for Jameson to cast it so early on, especially considering his board had nothing really going for it, but sometimes you do just need to try and push on. I think the 2 decks that functioned best were Max's and Martin's take on Sek'Kuar, especially the Shadowborn Apostle sub-theme, was fantastic. I loved the addition of Bloodbond March as a way to recur the Shadowborn Apostles so easily, and Sek'Kuar himself really likes the fact that these creatures sacrifice themselves, giving Martin a ton of advantage and creatures and board. In a very similar sense, Max's Yennett deck was also built around a very specific theme, and he did it very well. The fact of the matter is, most of his deck is an uneven converted mana cost, which means that he can cast that spell for free with his commander if he's able to attack. Once Yennett had the Whispersoul Cloak on it, as you saw, it was pretty hard to stop, and Max was able to get a ton of value, especially with Liliana Vess guaranteeing what he was going to hit. Please be sure to tune in every Monday and Thursday at 11 AM Eastern Standard Time for a guaranteed new video. You can also follow me on Twitter at MTGMudsta. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/MTGMudsta. And lastly, you can check me out when I stream at twitch.tv/MTGMudsta. This video is brought to you in support by my patrons. If you're looking for a way to help out the channel, please be sure to visit the link below. Thank you all for watching this video, and don't forget, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.